To learn more about earning college credits with study hall courses, visit gostudyhall.com or click the link in the description. The next time you walk into a store, you might notice they're selling grapes from Chile, water bottles from China, and t-shirts from Bangladesh. Today, that doesn't seem weird at all. It's just how the world works. But we wouldn't get our globalized supermarket smorgasbord without the global exchanges of the 19th and 20th centuries, which wouldn't have happened without the colonialism and exploitation throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, which couldn't have happened without the age of exploration. Which was the result of many new global connections thanks to the Silk Road and the Mongols. Maybe you've heard of them. Today, we're more connected than ever. But knowing the history of how we got to this point is crucial to understanding our current moment. By evaluating modern history, like the stuff that's happened in your own lifetime, through the lens of history gone by, we can gain deeper understanding of our present and our future. And no, I'm not just talking about the Bermuda shorts trend of 2008. Hi, I'm Rob Fuller, and this is Study Hall. Very modern world history. The globalization, or the worldwide interdependence of our modern age, was made possible by huge advances in trade and technology. And in some ways, we were always headed in this direction. Whether it's an individual swapping glass or clay beads for a beaver pelt, or the US importing literally 2.5 million pounds of avocados each year, trade was pretty much always a crucial part of human civilization. So it makes sense that as technology has advanced over the millennia, trade has only become more efficient thanks in part to one of the premier inventions of our modern age: the humble shipping container. Back in the day, importing and exporting goods took major time. Think back to the Silk Road in the 2nd century BCE connecting Asia and Europe, where a round-trip journey took 2 years. That's a far cry from today's 2-day shipping. With the rise of oceanic trade across the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, as well as the Mediterranean Sea, fresh 15th century technologies made things quicker. But the Manila galleons, Spain's cross-Pacific trading ships from the 16th century, still took months to make it from the Americas back to the Philippines. And not only was the trek slow and arduous, but every bit of cargo had to be loaded and unloaded piece by piece. That took tons of manpower and made it easier for thieves to steal valuable cargo before it made it to its destination. But after shipping containers were invented in 1956, manufacturers could now fill them to the brim with goods and then stack those containers high on fuel-powered boats, making the whole process more secure and more efficient. And that efficiency meant folks could sell their goods to more people at lower costs. Thanks to shipping containers, we're used to finding just about everything we need at the store. From SpaghettiOs to dish gloves to cat food. But in order for the cat food to make its way from the factory to the shelf, it's gotta take a ride on the shipping container. Like the one the BBC tracked for a year in 2008. During that time, the shipping container traveled around the world twice and clocked in over 50,000 miles. Once the container reached its next destination, it would get unloaded, reloaded with new goods, and then head off again. This one container carried thousands of products like Scotch whiskey, tape measures, spearmint flavoring, ink, and yes, cat food. And a lot of these goods end up on our store shelves, like Mitten's favorite salmon pate dinner. And once you get used to easy, unlimited access to a huge diversity of products from around the world, like top shelf cat food, you, and Mittens, really don't want to give that up. But you and Mittens aren't the only ones who want the links in the supply chain to stay strong. International corporations have a huge stake in the success of the global economy. Just like the political empires of the past who built their wealth and power from trade, modern corporations build power and profit off our global consumerism, because the larger the market, the more money to be made. And although these modern companies like Amazon don't have quite the same scope and power of the chartered companies of the 17th and 18th centuries, countries still depend on them for economic boosts through tariffs and taxes. And if you've stuck with us through this whole course, you definitely knew there was going to be a but. But there is a dark side to all of the efficiency and profit of modern trade. If you're gonna increase manufacturing, you're gonna need more cheap labor too. So companies in countries like the US started setting up their own factories in places that already had been ravaged by colonialism. The history of imperial exploitation in these countries meant they are poorer and have less global power. With fewer options available, their citizens work for lower pay, in harsher conditions, all helping these companies save a pretty penny. And while these places are not technically under the political control of their colonizers anymore, entire communities still feel the negative effects of large Western companies, like what happened in Bhopal, India. Between December 2nd and 3rd, 1984, more than 40 tons of methyl isocyanate, a highly toxic chemical gas, began leaking from storage tanks at a US-run pesticide plant in Bhopal, India. As it spread, the gas killed over 15,000 people and injured more than 500,000 others in what is considered the world's worst industrial disaster. Now, a little background. India had only gained independence from the British Empire less than 40 years earlier, in 1947. But the country quickly fell under the influence of a different type of imperial power. Instead of the far-off British government controlling the politics, economics, and people of India, it was now huge global corporations running the lives of the many Indian citizens working for them. The Indian government had originally invited the Union Carbide Corporation, or UCC, to India in the 1970s as part of a plan to grow the post-colonial Indian economy through foreign corporate investments. But over time, the UCC failed to maintain its safety mechanisms or to even meet basic safety standards. The situation became more and more hazardous, and the UCC knew it. And ultimately, it was their workers who paid the price. But Union Carbide didn't want to accept the blame for what it had done. They instead claimed that it was the Indian subsidiary's fault and even started making up stories about Sikh extremist groups supposedly sabotaging the plant. The situation became even more tense when US authorities refused to extradite the company's CEO after Indian authorities charged him with manslaughter. And the UCC's disregard for the Indian people didn't stop there. Because rather than disposing of the remaining hazardous waste properly, the company just dumped it and left. It continued to seep into the groundwater and affected the region and its residents for years. In the end, Union Carbide settled with the Indian Supreme Court and paid $470 million in fines, which of course wasn't nearly enough to support the victims. In fact, families were given a measly $2,200 to compensate them for losing a loved one. So while India had technically won political independence from colonial rule in the mid-20th century, incidents like the Bhopal disaster made it clear that the impacts of those centuries of imperialism continued to reverberate, with white Western powers carrying on along the same path of exploitation and control for profit. Of course, the leaders at Union Carbide weren't planning on perpetuating the worst industrial disaster to date. They just thought they'd fudge the rules a little, look the other way, and maybe make a little extra profit. But even unintended consequences have real impact. Like back in the early days of the Columbian Exchange, the rapid spread of disease from imported European herd animals ravaged the indigenous population of the Americas. And just because the European colonizers hadn't meant to wipe out indigenous communities yet, it didn't mean it didn't happen. And the unintended consequences of human actions don't just impact people, they affect the whole Earth. We've spent a whole lot of time in this course talking about technological progress, but that progress has had pretty huge unintended consequences on the environment. According to scientists working for the United States Environmental Protection Agency, by the 20th century, humans had become the biggest cause of global pollution, habitat destruction, and climate change. The impact human action has had on our environment is now so severe that some scientists and historians refer to our modern era as the Anthropocene, a geological age where human activity directly causes global environmental change. Take those nifty shipping containers we talked about earlier. While it's convenient for us as consumers, shipping all that stuff all the way around the world has huge environmental impacts. And that's not even mentioning all that goes into the manufacturing process itself. Now, the folks at the top of the global economy didn't set out to destroy the planet, but that's just what's happening. And the same inequalities entrenched in our world by colonialism are exacerbated by climate change. Wealthy industrialized nations like the United States, China, and Russia are the ones causing the most environmental damage as they seek to expand production and up profit. And those being hit the hardest by the environmental disasters of climate change are, you guessed it, those same communities who've been exploited for centuries and who have had very little impact on climate change themselves, like the Taku Islands in the Pacific. The Taku people have called the Taku Islands home for more than 1,200 years. But thanks to climate change, Taku Islanders are now at risk of losing everything. Rising sea levels, flooding, and violent storms threaten homes and lives, and the increasing salinity of the water means that the same farming methods Taku Islanders have used for millennia suddenly aren't cutting it anymore. The Taku people are facing an impossible decision: stay on the islands and risk their lives to natural disasters and starvation, or leave their ancestral homes and join the growing ranks of climate refugees, those people who have been forced out of their homes by climate change. Climate disaster is underway across the globe, and often it's the indigenous communities like the Taku who end up shouldering the brunt of human-induced climate disaster. In 2023, the US and Canada both experienced devastating wildfires thanks to climate change-related drought conditions. In Maui, nearly 100 people were killed, and sites and artifacts sacred to the native Hawaiians were demolished, while in Canada, over 25,000 indigenous people were displaced. Unfortunately, these extreme events are only becoming more common. And while nobody meant to destroy the planet, we are, as a global community, facing the consequences. To recap, globalization isn't new. In fact, it's been in the works since even before Genghis Khan and the Mongols started their march across Asia, where they re-established the Silk Road and jump-started a new era of global trade. The connection of Asia and Europe allowed for more than just the exchange of goods, but also ideas, ushering in a new age of exploration. As these trade routes strengthened, far-off communities now became more and more dependent on one another. And with the rise of oceanic trade, colonization, and the Columbian Exchange, people in the 16th century found themselves in the midst of a global economy. Technological advances in shipping, agriculture, manufacturing, and communication kicked our connected world into an even higher gear. Today, we live in a world where we're more interconnected than at any other moment in human history. I can video chat with my friend in Vietnam, order a jar of Vegemite straight from Australia, get on a plane to Cape Town, and buy enough Mexican avocados to make guacamole for my whole neighborhood. And yes, I do bring the party. This is an example of progress, the way history, innovation, and human action build on one another to create something beyond what existed before. But there's a dark side to progress as well. Man-made disasters like what happened in Bhopal are a side effect of our global industrialization, as is our rapidly changing climate. Now, at the end of a world history course, it's tempting to leave you with something uplifting, something that arms you with a newfound knowledge of the world and its history so that you can personally break the cycle of imperialism and exploitation that exists as the foundation of our modern world. But unfortunately, that's even more ridiculous than the idea of a heliocentric solar system to a 16th century clergyman. That is to say, it's pretty damn ridiculous. But the study of history is still important. Knowing how we got from point A to point B may not personally empower you or me to restructure all of society, but it does help us to understand it. And once you peel back our greed for profit and power, we find the desire to ask questions, to gain knowledge, to chart new trade routes, invent new technologies, explore new philosophies, and connect with new people. To understand is the most human impulse behind history itself. If you're enjoying Study Hall Modern World History and are interested in taking an online course and earning college credit, visit gostudyhall.com. or click on this button to learn more. Thank you sincerely for watching.